Each night, across the globe, millions of people will experience a terrifying phenomenon.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
At night, it's almost like I feel like I'm being watched.
As soon as I bought this house, I felt evil in the house.
It holds you. You can't move.
And I remember thinking, is this what death is like?
Now, why is it that some people think, that this can kill? Well, first of all, it feels like you're going to die.
Some call them demons, devils, shaitan, or shadow people. In Islam, they are collectively known as the Jinn.
Each and every culture in the world, each and every civilization has these notions, myths, superstitions of entities that exist beyond the human world.
And I see a shadow crouching between my bookshelf and my dresser.
So my conclusion was that shadow people are a form taken by Jinn. It is one of the easiest ways for the Jinn to interact with people.
And I remember waking up and being like, don't move. Whatever you do, don't move.
The Jinn are capable of great destruction, including killing people.
It wants to get in me, and I feel that.
The fear level has got to be very, very high, and they feed on this.
I saw this figure moving from left to right.
They can kill, and they will kill, and they have killed in the past.
The Quran is very explicit that before we existed, the Jinn existed.
The hostile ones seem to be intent on paying us back or punishing us for taking their place on the planet.
So, who are the Jinn? Where are they coming from? And what do they want? One woman's chilling encounter with a sinister shadow being defies belief. The entity unleashed a reign of terror in her home that lasted for several months. The account you are about to hear is based on actual events and her own testimony.
Well, about 4 years ago, my daughter was out with her boyfriend, and she was in high school, and she came in the door, running in the door, and she was terrified. She was hollering for me. Her boyfriend was right behind her, and he was white as a ghost. He wasn't saying anything at all. He just looked like he was in shock. And I was surprised myself because he was kind of this tough boy that had been raised in Maine, and he did a lot of hunting and fishing and very familiar with all the wildlife in the area. And they said that this black shadow followed them in his truck the whole way home. She was screaming. It was a high pitch. This shadow was following me behind the truck, and I tried to calm her down. You know, maybe it was a big bird trying to make her feel comfortable and less afraid, and he grew upset with me and said, I know what birds are. This was not a bird. And I've just never seen a man, I don't think, a kind of tough man like he was, so afraid in my life. And that made me a little bit afraid to see him so afraid, because no matter what I named, trying to logically think of things it could be, he was getting more and more upset with me. And they said that the shadow was right on the back of his truck. When he looked in the rearview mirror, there's this black thing. When she turned her head around, there, right behind that truck, was this big black thing flying in the air, chasing them. And they ran into the house. Then he left to go home, and I heard the tires squealing around the corner. And when he got home, he called my daughter and said that the black thing came out of nowhere and followed him all the way home. I couldn't calm my daughter down. She was scared to death. It was just pure terror. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Don't bring up that black shadow again. And she was terrified. She was terrified for a long time.
Many cultures throughout history have long held beliefs that we coexist alongside a multitude of entities who reside on frequencies just beyond our normal perception. Often, victims wake up in a state of paralysis, unable to move or cry out, while others go on to report seeing an ominous, shadowy figure standing right beside their bed. Physical assaults and sexual attacks seem to be commonplace during these types of supernatural encounters. Some of the more commonly reported shadow beings are the classic humanoid silhouettes, the sinister-looking Hat Man, and the old wizened Hag. There have even been numerous reports of shadowy beings flying around in the skies above us.
I've had many encounters with shadow people, and I've seen them as humanoid forms, looking very solid and tangible. I've seen them as kind of black blobby forms, and I've seen them as black smoke and mist, and sometimes change from one to the other.
It was the size of a man, a grown man, but it looked more, like the smoke monster from Lost.
And I will wake up, and it's always a shadow of a face in the upper part of the room towards the ceiling.
I've seen them shapeshift into swirls of smoke, or even like mini tornadoes of ink that will swirl up and then just disappear.
Have you ever seen Monsters, Inc.? How they're not supposed to go into the doorway. The kids are not supposed to see them. They're these big, fuzzy, furry, kind of cool animals. That's not what it is. They don't feel like that.
One thing about them is all common, and that is that these entities in all cultures are terrifying to look at, which means they purposely take on forms that terrify.
It holds you. You can't move. It just holds you there. And it wants to penetrate into you.
And when I was washing my hands to come out into the kitchen, I looked up and saw a figure at the bottom of the stairs that quickly swung itself around the banister and up the stairs.
Saw this figure moving from left to right, which was going into my bathroom. I said to myself, what the heck was that?
When I opened my eyes, there was these 3 solid black shadows. I'm talking solid.
Right as I turned all the way around in front of me, I saw this dark shadow figure fall and hit the ground. And it made a loud thump when it hit the ground.
It was like a vacuum trying to really just steal my soul.
They emit a different frequency of light that we can't process, our human brain can't process. So we know that something's blocking our natural visible spectrum, so we perceive it as a shadow.
Shadow people are one of those common paranormal experiences people have, and the typical experience is a bedroom invasion. It's a case where you're sleeping and you wake up and you find you have an intruder in the room with you, and that intruder looks like a very large humanoid. Maybe even you might mistake it for a person, a very large human-shaped figure that's solid black and may appear to be wearing a coat or a cape and sometimes a hat.
I had an experience one night. It was, I would probably say like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I was having a hard time falling asleep. I fell asleep, but I sort of felt like I really wasn't sleeping yet. I sort of like was closing my eyes and I was sleeping, but then I woke up and it was like I was just staring towards the doorway, and all of a sudden my leg that was on the outside of the bed felt like something was pulling me, but my body was moving off the bed, but I was laying there like watching my body starting to move. And then I look over and I could see somebody, and I thought it was my boyfriend because it was a very tall man figure.
Sometimes there is no hat, but this figure is solid black, and it seems to have mass because it blocks everything out behind it. Usually there are no eyes. 6 to 8 feet tall is the typical height, and it radiates a malevolence, even an evil.
So I looked and I got out like that, and then I sat up and I was like, Derek? And then I'm like, okay, it's not moving. And I could see, not a perfect profile, but I could see a hat. It was like a rim of a hat, and it was all dark. And then when I said his name again, the image, the face, looked over like that at me, and then looked straight like that. And I was like, and I instantly I froze. I was like, what is that? And so, of course, your first reaction is to hide. So I went right under the covers, and then I was like, oh, I'm just going to look again. And then when I went down and looked again, it was still there. That's when I was like, oh. And instantly, I had the goosebumps, and I had like the cold, clammy feeling. My eyes were watering, and it was just like, what? Oh my gosh, what was that? Like, there was somebody standing here. I know there was. I saw it. Like, I double taked everything. And as soon as I got up to go towards to turn another light on, before I hit the light switch, it was gone. And then I got up, and then I stayed up the rest of the night. I couldn't even fall back to sleep. I had to turn the lights on, sit up. I was just, frazzled by it. I was just shooken up.
The Hat Man is another name for shadow person. And this is an entity that looks like a silhouette of a tall, usually male human that comes into the bedroom and pesters people. Sometimes it looks like it's wearing a coat or a cape as well. It seems to be solid because it blocks out light and objects behind it. Sometimes it attacks people, and sometimes it disappears as soon as you realize it's there.
There has been much speculation as to what shadow people are. Some believe them to be extraterrestrial in origin or demonic entities, while others claim that they are nothing more than spirits or ghosts of long-dead ancestors. More recent research points to the Jinn, a race of spiritual beings who are well documented in Islamic culture and religion.
Sometimes the hats are old-fashioned. It's like, why does an entity need to wear an old-fashioned hat, like a Victorian stovepipe hat, or a cowboy hat, or a Dick Tracy-like detective hat? What's the point of that? Well, I think there is a very good reason. And after I came to the conclusion some years ago that shadow people are form taken by Jinn, it made perfect sense. Because in Jinn lore, that goes back to ancient times, it holds that the Jinn can never perfectly take on another form.
If they take the form of an animal, there's usually going to be some type of deformity in the animal, maybe a missing leg or something wrong with it. And a lot of times, if they take the form of human, there is also going to be something wrong with them.
Every civilization has this type of notion of a shapeshifter. Where does it come from? It is the jinn. The jinns are the real shapeshifters. The jinns can appear in any shape and fashion and form. They can also appear in the form of dead people. And we know this from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, if you see me in a dream, then know that you have really seen me, because the shayateen cannot duplicate my form. What does that mean? They can duplicate anybody else's form.
After analyzing hundreds and hundreds of stories, looking for patterns, and trying to fit them onto what I would call templates of different kinds of entities. That is, what are the dominant characteristics of other beings that we usually encounter, and does that profile fit what people are describing as shadow person? I had to discard them one by one. They weren't ghosts, they weren't thought forms, they weren't aliens or extraterrestrials, they weren't demons. So what were they? And finally I came around to an entity, a being that I was very familiar with, but I hadn't really considered as a major player in the paranormal field before, and that was the Jinn.
So everybody's quite familiar with the story of Aladdin, or Aladdin, and how you rubbed the lamp and he had a jinn. And of course, in Eastern cultures, they call him Jinn, or it a jinn, and in the West, people call it a genie.
It's interesting that in our entertainment industry, these sorts of themes play out all the time. And the interference of the gods, for example, in the realm of human beings, the interference of demons and malevolent entities, and even the jinn. There have been a number of jinn films in recent years. And we can take it on board as entertainment and laugh it off as something that doesn't really happen. But it does. It happens every day all over the planet, and it's happening to people right in America as well.
So you've got many, many different facets. So they've been around since the very first religious textbooks were written, right the way from Hinduism onto the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
And once I applied the Jinn profile to shadow people, everything fell into place. And so my conclusion was that shadow people are a form taken by Jinn. It is one of the easiest ways for the Jinn to interact with people. Since I arrived at that conclusion years ago, all of the evidence that I continue to accumulate over time reinforces that conclusion.
About 6 months ago, I went to go outside with my dog to let my dog go to the bathroom, and it was a full moon, but it was really bright, and I have a set of poplars, and about 100 feet away a set of pines and some maples, and out from the poplars came this black form, and it was black. I'm not talking about a light gray shadow, or like when, I think I see something out of the corner of my eye. It was right directly in front of me, and it went from one tree line into the other tree line. It went fast. I went back in the house. I thought, okay, it's gone. I'm never going to see it again. It happened once. Whatever it was, I'm still afraid of it, but I'm not going to see it again. The next night, out to take the dog to the bathroom, and it happened again, only it was even clearer. It moved fast, but it wasn't quite as fast, and I think I was more aware because I was on heightened alert, so to speak, afraid. And sure enough, it came out from the same set of trees, and it was black with a form to it. And it went from the same tree lines over into the pine trees. And I watched it as it went the whole way with the dog just standing there. And it appeared like the dog was staring at whatever it was also. I ran back into the house, and it terrified me because I've never seen anything like that before. I've never even seen, what they speak of as like shadows or gray shadows. And for some reason, to me at the time, it had a bad feeling to it. I'm still afraid at night to take the dog out to the bathroom. Every single night before I go to take that dog out to the bathroom, I stop and think that I might see it again.
The Arabic word jinn comes from a root that implies something that is concealed from the eyes, something that is hidden.
In the creation story about the jinn that is told in the Quran, in the beginning there were angels and jinn.
Of the things we know about the jinn is that they were created before men.
And the angels were made out of a pure spiritual light, and the jinn were made out of smokeless fire, having no form whatsoever.
The Quran is very explicit that before we existed, the jinn existed. Before Allah created Adam, He had created the jinn.
Then God decided to create human beings out of earth and water, clay. And that created some trouble in paradise.
According to ancient and religious beliefs, the jinn were banished from this dimension in a dispute over man's arrival.
It happened when God told the angels to bow down to Adam, and the angels complied because they followed God's will. But Iblis, who is the leader of the jinn, refused, and his grounds were that human beings were inferior to the jinn, and he was not going to bow down to anything that was inferior.
Iblis was the one who thought, I am better because of where I come from. I am better because of what I have been used to be created by.
This made God quite angry. And so, as punishment, he cast the jinn out of the realm, which is the equivalent of sending them to a parallel dimension, because now we have human beings on earth, and so the jinn are cast out. They appealed. Iblis appealed and was granted until Judgment Day by God to prove his case, that human beings were inferior.
According to legend, the jinn were without original form. They were spiritual beings made from a scorching, smokeless fire that in today's terms would probably be described as a type of plasma.
I'm going to add my own theory, take it or leave it. And this is not a fact, this is my theory, my understanding of my own understanding of the Quran and Sunnah and my own interactions with this species. In my humble opinion, it is as if the jinn have been created from what we call energy, what physicists call energy. They are on the energy spectrum.
In my understanding, jinn were created as a creation of God. As far as how, I'm not sure, but in the Quran it describes it as a smokeless fire.
So how do we explain the smokeless fire? We can explain the pure spiritual light that angels come from, but what is smokeless fire? Well, in modern terms, that could be considered a form of plasma. And plasma has fluidity. The smokeless aspect of the jinn gives them no definite form.
Maybe they are just pure energy, spiritual, pure energy. They're energy beings that would allow them to take any form they wish, that would allow them to do things that would appear to be supernatural because they're not bound by a physical body.
No one knows what the true form of jinn is, or even if they have one, because smokeless fire is constantly changing, just like plasma could constantly change. And this may be the real root of their tremendous shape-shifting ability.
Our eyes cannot see the reality of energy. Can we see these waves being bombarded? Our radio waves right now, our internet, our phone waves. They're coming through the walls here. There's a type of energy on the spectrum.
Another aspect pointing to plasma might be the fact that when some people perceive the jinn, especially in shadow people form, they have a blue glow around them. And could this be caused by a plasma condition or some sort of change in electromagnetic energy that might be affected by plasma?
So, in my humble opinion, and this is the position of many classical scholars, there is no original structure of the jinn.
In Islamic belief, jinn are often associated with the forms of snakes and dogs. Is it just a coincidence that in Genesis 3 it is written that a snake of all things was the creature that appeared in the Garden of Eden to tempt Eve? Or could this deceptive reptile have been a cunning jinn, masquerading in the body of a serpent?
The Jinn do not have a single purpose in mind, and we have to realize that they occupy the planet along with us, and they are like us in terms of our dispositions. Some of them are good, some of them are neutral, some of them are negative and hostile, troublemakers, and there are probably a lot of them just like human beings that have a little bit of both in them.
There's a category of jinn that typically appears in the form of animals. This is the first category. And two animals in particular the jinns love to appear in, but sometimes there are other animals. And the two main animals that the jinns love to appear in are snakes and dogs.
But it seems that we're dealing with the negative end of the spectrum when it comes to our encounters with jinn.
The second category is some are yatiruna fil hawa. They are flying around in the skies. And perhaps those types of jinns have almost nothing to do with us, perhaps.
The hostile ones seem to be intent on paying us back or punishing us for taking their place on the planet. That we became the dominant species on the planet, and they got pushed out to an alternate reality. And some of them want that back. They want their turf back.
And then the third type of jinn is they come and they go. This is the one that seems to want to irritate us, want to frighten us, want to come into our lives.
It is very common for people who experience a phenomenon known as sleep paralysis to report all the symptoms of a full-blown supernatural assault. Sleep paralysis affects approximately 1 in 5 people worldwide. Often people wake up paralyzed, unable to move, speak, or cry out. They appear to be fully conscious, but can do nothing to move their bodies. It is at this point that these people will often see or perceive a supernatural presence. So what exactly is sleep paralysis?
Sleep paralysis is the experience of awakening, unable to move, or sometimes it happens just as you're about to fall asleep, suddenly finding yourself unable to move but not yet asleep. And it's produced by a physiological mechanism in the brain that's well understood. What is not understood is why at least somewhere around 80% of people in sleep paralysis have this very complex, strange, subjective experience that we've been discussing.
I was never aware that he was going to arrive until I would be asleep, and as I felt myself kind of frozen and not able to move and stuck, not able to speak, it felt like your lips were sewn shut and your body was totally numb. Then I felt he was coming.
When you incapacitate something and you totally crush it, its spirit is crushed, its inner being is crushed, and you penetrate that. You overtake it. And that's why he totally wants to do that.
There are a bunch of things that people do not ever describe, but here is the range of the most common descriptions. First of all, humanoid, usually, not always, but looking generally like a human figure, usually dark. A lot of people have told me that they started calling it the shadow man.
What happened to me one time was I was sleeping on this very couch and I woke up and just a few feet away from me was the shadow of a man.
And it was dark. It was really black when it crossed. And it looked like a human from the waist up, of what I could see.
Sometimes it is more like a cloud or a mass of some sort, like a cloud or vapor coming toward you and then surrounding you.
It was the size of a man, a grown man, but it looked more, like the smoke monster from Lost. If you've ever seen that, it was just this shadow, and you couldn't see through it. It was there. It was something, an entity of some sort, and it, as soon as it realized that I was there, or I was awake, it just moved towards the window and left. And after that happened, I eventually woke myself up, or got myself out of the paralysis state, and I sat up, and I felt so helpless. I felt so unsafe. I was afraid to go back to sleep. I was afraid that if I fell asleep again, it would come back, and I wouldn't be able to, see it or catch it doing whatever it initially sought out to do.
Fairly often people describe a presence that they can't see, but that they are aware of, both where it is, where it's moving, what it wants, that sort of thing, what it intends to do, that it intends to hurt them, or some people often say they're sure that it wants to kill them.
And I remember waking up and being like, don't move. Whatever you do, don't move. Because there's something there. Something is watching you. And if you move, they're going to know that you're alive and that you're awake and that you're in their presence. And I never, it gives me the chills. You could never be in their presence. That's not what it wanted. It wanted to be there with you, but not with you awake.
And it just kind of like grabs you, but it's not a grabbing like physical. It's a grabbing like it's an energy that goes through your body and holds you, and it's like it wants to possess you, and it's a really scary feeling because it covers you. It just covers you, paralyzes you. You can't move, and you're awake.
It's really scary. It's really fearful. Like I feared for my life.
Now, why is it that some people think that this can kill? Well, first of all, it feels like you're going to die.
One of the reasons why I felt that I was dying, not only was I paralyzed, couldn't talk, but I couldn't breathe.
I thought I was dying. I thought I was going to go. I was in some limbo somewhere, and that's the state I was going to be in.
Another reason that some people believe that it can result in death is the way it's been connected with something called sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, which is something that was first described in a group of Southeast Asian refugees in the United States. It came to the attention of the Centers for Disease Control that a remarkable number of previously healthy men, mostly between the ages of 30 and 40, in this particular community, this group was the Hmong, H-M-O-N-G, were dying in their sleep, and on autopsy, no cause of death could be found. One of the most fascinating social issues here is that all of these kinds of experience were well known in Western tradition up to 300 or 400 years ago. It's not simply that Western culture never had a clue about these things. It's even more dramatic. We erased it. We erased knowledge of these experiences from the cultural repertoire while the experiences were continuing to happen. That is dramatic. That's a level of social control that's very impressive.
Some attacks are so severe that they are often referred to as full-blown supernatural assaults. What exactly is a supernatural assault, And why is it that many of the victims feel so much fear during the experience?
I get the sense that they were small creatures or whatever it was, small spirits, from the high pitch and the just all of them like or whatever it was, making this noise, coming, grumbling, whatever it is, coming down the hallway, and instantly, within a few seconds of hearing that, I felt something sit on my bed. I felt a heavy weight, like a person had come into my room and sit on the end of my bed.
This is something you can't escape. This is something that holds on to you really, like it's gonna dominate you, like it's gonna make you his, and you have no choice.
And so I instinctively just took my leg and went under the covers and pushed, like I was trying to push whatever was there off the bed or out of the way. And as soon as I did that, I just felt something like something had pounced on me. And I was like paralyzed to the bed. I couldn't move. I'm laying there on my back, and I just felt this heavy weight, like something was holding me down, keeping me from moving.
Well, supernatural simply means to most people in ordinary English something non-material but real, spiritual, for example. So demons, ghosts, etc. would be supernatural. And these are traditions of assault because people feel attacked. You are paralyzed, and then something comes and presses on you or threatens you. That's an assault, an attack, whether it's being done by a burglar or a terrorist or a non-material entity of some kind.
One night, about 8 months ago, I was sitting on the couch, probably watching Rachel Maddow's show, watching the news, getting ready to go to bed, and I was a little bit tired, but not tired enough where I felt I should go into the bed and try and fall asleep yet. And I put my right arm back up behind my head on the couch and was just resting it there. And I felt it was so real, even though I knew I was alone in the house. It was so real that I was convinced that a person had came into my house and was grabbing me, because I was grabbed. I wasn't just touched. It wasn't something just brushed by me or lightly touched me. You could feel every finger and a thumb. It was a hard grab on my arm, and it stayed there for a second. I pulled my arm back and looked, really expecting that someone had broken into my house and snuck up behind me, because that's how real it felt. And nothing was there. Nothing was there. I stayed up all night. I didn't go to bed till the sun came up.
The terms incubus and succubus refer to sexual predator entities like demons. And the incubus would be like a male demonic entity that would attack females while they sleep and have actual sex with them. And the succubus would be a female demon that would attack sleeping men.
I'm pretty sure he's male because he has tried and has had sexual contact with me. He'll hold me down on the bed and my arms will be pinned back like this. And I don't know why, but I do sleep in weird positions, but my legs would be open and my arms would be up, and all of a sudden I feel this weight on me. And then someone trying to be in between my legs, and then they do it, he feels, and then stops. And then I breathe again, and he's gone when he's done.
Well, the Jinn are capable of this as well, and I believe that many of these incubus and succubus attacks are probably Jinn attacks, Jinn that want to have sexual intercourse with human beings. And sometimes it's not pleasant. It may start out as a very scary, terrifying encounter where you feel like something really ugly and what we would call demonic would be on top of you, literally forcing a sexual encounter on you, a rape in effect. And other times it starts out much differently. And this would be more to the Jinn's way of doing things, that they would appear in an alluring, beautiful form, something very seductive that could get a person aroused and engaged in the pleasure of having a vicarious experience, even coming to sexual completion. And then if these cases would continue on over a period of time, the entity might then start shifting into an uglier and uglier form, because its true intent would be to terrorize someone, but they take the sweet door in first.
It is said the Jinn feed off of fear, that they can detect fear and negativity in a person like a shark can detect a drop of blood across a vast ocean. Could people living in a state of fear and negativity be emanating vibrations that could be attracting the Jinn into their lives?
When shadow people show up, human beings have an automatic fear response. I have talked to a small number of people who have felt that the figures were benign, even benevolent, but by and large, the overwhelming majority feel fear when shadow people show up, especially in a bedroom invasion.
I know I was feeling panicked, and I felt afraid because I didn't understand what was happening.
Not even dying is that scary. No, not to me.
At that particular time, if I was going to bed, like I said, I was so afraid that I would make myself stay up 2 or 3 days, to make myself so tired that when I went to bed, I just went to sleep and I had no clue what was going on around me.
I don't know what it is, but I feel afraid of it at times.
That has a very desired, deliberate effect from the standpoint of Jinn. The Jinn feed off human energy, and if they can't get the very best vital life force, which is blood, and the spilling of blood generates a tremendous amount of force, then the next best thing is to vampirize the life force through fear. Because when we are suddenly afraid, we put out an incredible rush of adrenaline. It's the fight or flight syndrome. And I believe that that's what they vampirize. It's much easier to take the life force off human beings when they're in a state of fear.
Want to take a break?
Oh, I'm all right.
You've been talking so clearly. I haven't even taken a second to ask what it's like. How's it going?
That's fine, but the grabbing me is
horrid.
Is something that really scares me.
That level of fear that is generated during an encounter would be extremely high. Often people wake up, they feel paralyzed, unable to move, unable to speak. They're just helpless, laying there while this ominous dark entity crawls up on top of them. And some people report feeling like it's crushed them into the bed. Others go on to report being actually physically attacked or assaulted by one of these entities. Now that would produce fear in anybody.
I felt so frightened. I've never felt this way in my life.
I mean, I think it felt to me at the time probably like it was evil. That it had, an evil intent.
Some people experience an interaction concerning their breath, that whatever is on top of them is either taking their breath or breathing on them. And I have found this in the Jinn cases as well, and shadow people cases, that people have described their breath being pulled from them as though something is vacuuming or sucking it out with great force, like it's trying to get at their very soul.
It's almost like a vacuum that wants to bring you there, and I'm not going.
These are dire circumstances for some people, and these attacks might occur quite regularly for some individuals.
It was a battle, every time that I was visited at night, and I never knew when it was going to happen. And sometimes I was scared to even go to sleep because I would wonder, is this the night it's going to happen to me? I don't know if I can deal with this again.
In my opinion, whatever you focus on more, you're going to get more of. So if you're scared and you have lots of fear about, let's say, a burglar or a robber walking down the street, you know, maybe you'll be more susceptible to seeing it everywhere. Similar to a Jinn, I would compare it to a bully. If you egg on a bully, if you let them bother you, you know, you're more likely to get bothered by them, and they're more likely to pick on you.
And they are doing to these people what they fear the most. Strangulation, not being able to speak, not being able to breathe, not being able to move. In their subconscious, somewhere, they have those fears.
The fear experienced by people who have encountered the Jinn in shadow form can be very real. It is a fear that they carry with them for life. It is a fear they will never forget.
That was my protection. Another human being or another person or another loved, intimate object would be my, I guess, my shield.
Was that just for comfort, or did it really work?
We're getting a static build-up on you.
Oh,
It's something, it's causing your hair.
We don't have a presence in the room.
It's not present.
Okay. Oh, you scared me so bad. Oh.
It's your
We're
hair.
gonna save that.
You can see
Look,
it.
Rising up is beautiful.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really just got really freaked out. He was talking about energy, kind of a static build-up, and all I could think of was, here it comes. Here it comes again. And I guess I haven't felt that for a really long time. So, because I take medication at night to sleep, I take an anti-anxiety kind of a medication to be able to relax enough to let my body fall asleep. And it's a natural sleep. It's not like a comatose kind of sleep. I still dream. I still wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or to get a drink of water. But it just kind of takes the edge off, I guess. Because when I used to go to, right now I'm kind of shaky. So it's kind of, that's what I would feel like when I went to bed. I hated to go to bed. I hated it.
Many researchers have suggested that the Jinn are able to traverse time and space and enter our reality from the world of the unseen by using interdimensional gateways and portals. Scientists and string theorists worldwide believe that there could be 10 or even 11 other dimensions in existence. Could one of these alternate dimensional realities hold the key to the origin of these non-material entities known as the Jinn?
From the very beginning of my research into the paranormal, the concept of parallel worlds or dimensions made a lot of sense to me. Where do these beings come from? They don't seem to be in our reality all the time. Not everybody perceives them or encounters them, so where are they?
You start getting into subatomic physics and string theory, they're talking about 11 different dimensions, including our own.
There are many strange things in our universe that we don't understand. Our universe is made up of matter, of vibrational frequencies. Modern day science can only measure 5% of all that exists. The 95% that they can't measure, they just simply term as dark matter. They call it dark matter because they can't measure it.
You cannot enter the world of the Jinn, but the Jinn can enter your world. You cannot just snap your fingers and be transported into the world of the Jinn. And Allah explicitly says this in the Quran, Surah A'raf, verse 27. Surah A'raf, verse 27, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. He, Iblis, and his tribes can see you from a place that you cannot see them.
they seem to be in other worlds, and that there are windows or openings that occur between our world and theirs from time to time that enables experiences to happen.
But what if, in that 95% of dark matter that can't be measured, other life forms could exist?
From an occult perspective, these dimensions vibrate at different frequencies, and that is why we don't perceive them all the time. They are literally vibrating at a rate that creates another reality beyond the ability of our five senses.
Humans can only perceive with their eyes 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, which is very minimal. That would suggest that we are practically blind to all that exists in the whole universe.
Well, if there were something in your environment that had a color that was outside of our visual range and it stood in front of you, it wouldn't be invisible. It would just look black. It would block out the light from behind, and it would reflect light that you couldn't see, so it would just look dark. So I
like a shadow, in fact.
It would look like a shadow.
It's very interesting.
That's a good point, isn't it? Yeah, well, maybe there's something to that.
In science, there is the concept for many worlds, and that is the notion that there are parallel dimensions stacked upon Earth, and that we really aren't in a universe, we're in a multiverse.
Now, another reason that these things are manifesting so much lately is they could also be drawing from a different energy source on a vibrational level.
You have a massive increase in vibrational energy across the planet. You've got radio waves, satellite, TV stations transmitting all over the globe. You've got Wi-Fi signals, cell phone signals. All of these new forms of energy that we didn't have years ago are now everywhere, passing through walls, passing through buildings. There's nothing to stop these energy waves.
So it's possible that these things can grab your favorite radio station's frequency and say, okay, here's something I can latch onto and I can manifest myself with.
I think that these other beings and spirits occupy some of these alternate realities. And they have their own existence in those realities just like we do. But from time to time, worlds collide, and then we have experiences that literally are otherworldly.
He can enter your paradigm of living. You cannot go into theirs.
It's quite possible that some other dimensional entity has said, oh, wait a second, I found a way to move up or move down as far as those dimensions go and cross those walls. And but we see them as a shadow because they're existing, say, in a different light frequency that we can't see. All we know is that there's something blocking the light.
My interest in shadow people started back in the 1980s when I went on a paranormal tour with some work colleagues to the Chislehurst Caves in England. And during the tour, we were down by the well shaft in the caves, and the tour guide was talking about the history on the well shaft and the history on the caves, and I was standing at the back of the group, and next to me was a lady from Germany. She was over visiting friends, work colleagues of mine, and she'd come along on a tour, so I never knew her. We never spoke. I didn't even know her name. And all of a sudden I had this feeling to turn around. I didn't know, it's kind of one of those weird feelings, you sense something behind you. So I turned around, and when I turned around, I looked at the bottom of the cave, and it was only probably, I'd say 30 feet away from me, and I saw these three embers, almost like somebody was dragging on a cigarette, and they were in the form of a triangle, one here, and one here. And then I looked at them, and they glowed, they got brighter. So I said to the lady, what's that? The German lady next to me. So she turned around, and we were both standing over our lanterns looking, trying to see down the cave. It was pretty dark. And all of a sudden, those three embers started to rotate anti-clockwise like this, and they got faster and faster. So we were looking at them. I thought maybe it's some sort of a light down there or something like that. I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden they stopped spinning and they opened up. One went here, and one went down. And from the center of this triangle jumped this small black humanoid shadow, which looks like the typical humanoid silhouette of a shadow. It's like just a form of a man, and it stood there, and it was looking around like this, but it wasn't looking at us, and we were watching it. We were both observing it, And we were speechless. At this time, I'd never heard of shadow people, so I didn't know what it was. I really didn't know what was going on. I thought it was some trick or some, projector projecting this thing in front of us. Anyway, it was moving like this, and then all of a sudden, the lady next to me, she screamed. She let out a loud scream. And when she did that, the creature, it just turned and it looked right at us like that. And then it just turned to the left, its left, and it ran straight through the chalk wall. I didn't know what to make of it. And the German lady couldn't get out what had happened. So I told everyone what we just saw. And the tour guide said that that had been seen down in those caves by a number of people.
The Jinn are capable of great destruction, including killing people. It's impossible to say how often they do this, but there are cases on record where deaths have been attributed to the interference of Jinn.
I do believe that it is possible for a Jinn to harm a person after they've had communication for long periods of time. The longer the period of time, the more effect that Jinn could have on the person.
The Ifrit are considered to be one of the most powerful and dangerous kinds of Jinn. There are different types of Jinn, different capabilities, just like human beings. And the Ifrit are usually the ones who have the capability of taking a person over, either mentally or physically, doing a full possession.
So what we can gather from the Quran and Sunnah, the Ifrit is an especially evil and especially strong Jinn. It's a type of Jinn that has strength above and beyond what the other types of jinns have. And it has an evil nature that is above and beyond the evil of the average shaitan.
These beings have a very evil design.
They are capable of ruining somebody's health, causing them to have a fatal accident.
They can kill, and they will kill, and have killed in the past. That is why ancient societies, ancient texts always warn about the Jinn. It's not something to be taken lightly.
In Christian lore, they become demons. They're not known as Jinn, but they are classed as demons. And so the term Jinn then becomes subsumed in demonology.
Usually a man will be possessed by a female Jinn. So if you've heard of some stories, like the man will be talking in a voice that's not his, but it'll usually be like a very high-pitched voice, and it sounds very eerie.
And you will have jinns that speak in human languages, and this is well documented without getting all freaky on you and all that, but well documented.
And a woman will usually be possessed by a male Jinn. That's why a lot of times when a woman's possessed, her voice gets really deep.
The movie that was made of Emily Rose, it is based on an actual story from which we have tape recordings to this day, because this is back in the 60s and 70s, where a village girl, illiterate and uneducated, is speaking fluent Latin.
There are many kinds of exorcisms, and certainly there are very effective Islamic treatments for expelling a possessing Jinn. The Christians also have good exorcism rituals. Every spiritual tradition and religion has effective remedies for expelling unwanted entities. What I have discovered over the years, and especially in relation to Jinn, is that none of them will work 100% of the time in all cases. And sometimes it's a matter of experimentation to find something that works. First of all, you have to deal with the spiritual beliefs of the victims, what they're willing to accept, what they really believe in. Sometimes there are lesser topical remedies that are effective. But when an individual has become possessed, that's an extreme condition that requires an extreme remedy or an exorcism. Sometimes multiple exorcisms have to take place.
Over the years, It has been reported by a number of mainstream media outlets in the East and in the West that various governmental groups and political figures in the Middle East have summoned the Jinn. It is then said that these Jinn have been used against their enemies for nefarious reasons. Could it be possible that people are able to summon the Jinn and use them as supernatural mercenaries?
Some people summon the Jinn. You need something like star, like candle, like special smoke. You need special book for contact with Jinn. You need a special space. You sit down in this space and read some name for the Jinn. Like برهتية برهتية كرير كرير تتلية تتلية طوران طوران مسجل 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 برهش برهش غلمش غلمش خوطير خوطير قلنهود قلنهود برشان برشان كظهير كظهير يمشق. Like that. This is again, repeat this for 100 times, repeat that, and the Jinn it's coming about this name, because this name it's very big for the Jinn.
Human beings since ancient times have been calling upon the spirit world, upon the gods, for supernatural help against enemies. And in our culture today, we consider that kind of a backward view, that that's something that more primitive people did. But yet, people around the world still do it today.
But you need this real book for the contact with the Jinn. But that's dangerous, because the Jinn, if you feel the Jinn, you fried for the Jinn, you can kill you. This is something, it's crazy.
There was a very interesting case that arose some years ago concerning the former president of Iran. And the Wall Street Journal broke a story that his advisors around him were summoning up the Jinn to spy on people, to make bad things happen to the enemies. And this was a bit of a scandal. And further interviews with some of his advisors, there was one particular advisor who was known as a sorcerer, and he said, yes, of course I use the Jinn. Why wouldn't I use the Jinn? I have the Jinn spying for me all the time. They spy on Mossad, they spy on the English, MI6, MI5, they spy on the CIA, the FBI. Why wouldn't I use the Jinn? And yet to our culture, this is just, it doesn't compute. We can't imagine it. Because we don't have the same view of the spirit world. It doesn't live right next door to us like it does from the viewpoints of other cultures. And yet I wager that our government is just involved with these entities, as are other governments. We just don't know about it. It's not on the surface like it is in other cultures.
People who have experienced contact with these malevolent non-material entities are usually left with a feeling of terror, confusion, isolation, and disbelief. Often people who have had these experiences will not speak openly about it for fear of being labeled crazy.
Did you talk to anyone about this?
I don't think so, no. No, I don't think I did. Because I think they would probably think I was crazy.
If you try to explain it, people think you're crazy.
And I didn't want to talk about it to anybody because it sounds silly. Nobody wants to believe that there's something else out there other than what they can prove or see.
I think society doesn't want to believe it, and they want you to feel like, maybe, you're weird for seeing it or believing it or whatever the case may be.
I haven't told this to people. I don't feel I can tell this to people. I have maybe 2 friends that I could tell this to who would believe me.
People are very much in fear of being ridiculed about their experiences because they feel that something real and genuine happened to them. And if other people laugh and say, oh, it's just something you made up, or you were hallucinating, it was fantasy, it wasn't real, ha ha, then it's very demoralizing.
To be able to finally meet people that you can tell them these things that are happening to you, and they have and know that not only they believe you, but that they themselves have had experiences, that they know other people who haven't had experiences. I knew I wasn't delusional. I knew I wasn't hallucinating. I don't do drugs. I don't even drink. I knew that this was, no one could tell me that it wasn't real.
So what do you think about a culture where it's okay to talk about that and nobody thinks you're weird?
I think it'd be really neat, because I know in our culture, yeah, I mean, the first thing anyone would say is, you're crazy, seek help. That's definitely the first reaction I would have.
This country, the United States, they often are very reluctant to talk about it.
Yeah, no, but I've been here 17 years, so I know exactly. Don't worry about that.
Is it okay to have that experience in your culture?
I don't know if a lot of people believe it. Mostly, like my parents and my grandfolks, they would believe it, but like third generation, they probably think, oh, whatever.
Because science can't explain these things doesn't mean these things don't happen. These interdimensional beings do live in our space.
People should take notice of this, because if we don't, we're just going to let people suffer in silence. We need to discuss what's happening, figure it out, and then find out how to tackle this. If people have these experiences, they should be able to talk about them. They should be able to openly, in our society, talk to their peers, talk to their doctor, talk to a psychiatrist, talk to anybody about these experiences without the fear of being labeled crazy.
Over the years, I've interviewed many people about their encounters with shadow people, and some of them truly are terrifying. One of them that always stands out in my mind concerns a man who was 36 years old, was single, and raising his 8-year-old son. And he described himself as a periodic experiencer of something that he said was so evil, so malevolent. He said there are no words to describe the evil that emanates from this being. And this would come and visit him at night periodically, and he would be in a state of sleep paralysis. But this being had a lot of intelligence and would ratchet up the terror on him. It wouldn't just show up. It would come in stages, and he would know that it was getting closer and closer, just like a horror film. So the conditions would be that he would wake up in the middle of the night, and he would be in a state of paralysis. Couldn't move, couldn't speak out, and he would know that the thing was coming. He called it the thing with a capital T. And he would first feel it outside his house. It would be roaming around outside. And then suddenly he would know it was inside his house. Nothing could keep it out. It would be inside his house. And then it would be closer to his bedroom and would be coming down the hall. And then it would be at his bedside. All the while, he can't move, he can't scream, he's totally paralyzed. He doesn't know what this thing wants. And he usually slept with his door open because of his son, who slept in his own room down the hall. Well, he described one particular occasion that just upset him tremendously. And the scenario starts with the thing coming closer and closer. Only this time, as he's laying there in his quivering state of paralysis, he has the crazy idea in his head that it's not going to get into his bedroom because he's closed his door. Usually he keeps it open. And he thinks to himself, ha, it can't get in because the door is closed. And immediately he hears it say back to him in his head, telepathically, well, your son's door is open. And he knows that this thing is racing down the hallway to the bedroom where his son is sleeping. He is petrified for the safety of his son, and he can't do a thing about it because he is completely paralyzed. Well, there's a sort of happy ending to this story. It's not quite like a Hollywood horror movie because nothing bad happens. There's no destruction wreaked in the son's room. The son is not levitated off the bed or anything like that. It just ends. But actually, that's the way a lot of these encounters end, and that is the most terrifying thing of all, because it leaves the victim in a state of wondering what's going to happen next. If this thing can get into my house, if it can get into my bedroom, is it going to kill me? Is it going to attack me? What does it want? When is it coming back? And what can I do to stop it from coming back? That state of psychological terror eats away at people like acid, and it does more damage than an out-and-out attack.
We may never fully understand the complexity of the interdimensional multiverse we live in today. But as humanity evolves and becomes more aware of the true nature of reality, technologies may one day be developed that could prove once and for all that we do in fact coexist in this reality with sinister, non-material, energy-based beings like the Jinn. Remember this: if you open your eyes tonight to complete darkness, are paralyzed, unable to move or cry out, and you see a shadowy form, or feel an ominous presence in the room, this could be the night that you will experience a full-blown supernatural assault.
It suffocates me, almost like it wants to kill me.
It felt like somebody was sitting on my body, like this crushing weight on my body.
You can't breathe, you can't shout, you can't move.
It was like a vacuum trying to really just steal my soul.
And I'll point to the ceiling. Can't you see that? Can't you see that shadow or that person?
As she touched my face, you could hear her breathe.
So if I fall into a real deep sleep, it will get me.
There was something there. It wasn't an animal. It was a humanoid shape going up the stairs, blocking out the light.
You never really lose that feeling that something's there. You never really lose that fearful feeling that you're going to be taken away.
It felt evil. It just felt like something evil, your worst nightmare.
If you ever had to choose between life or death, I fought that question every night.
The closest human experience to that I think it would just have to be if maybe I were alone in the woods with silence, nobody around, and a creature of the night coming up out of nowhere to attack. That's the kind of situation that it would be closest to.